Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Katrin and solution leader on Orpheus and McKinsey company side. I'm very happy to lead the moderation of this breakout session today and very welcome to all of you. And I hope that we will guide you through a very interesting session. So what is the topic for today? Unleash the power of advanced analytics, going beyond S2P solutions with cloud-based data platforms. This is our topic for today. And maybe you already or you also face the same issue or challenge that establishing procurement resilience can be really tough for many organizations. And this can be due to the fact of a high organizational complexity, or you have too little spend transparency, or too heavy a reliance on a gut instinct because of siloed data and a lot of manual processes. And also COVID-19 exacerbated those challenges by the pandemic, but the pandemic also and especially made an even stronger case for analytics-driven future that companies have sought to achieve for years now. So what is the promise? By better using companies' own data, analytics can help organizations to spend more intelligently and efficiently, improving your liquidity and cost positions, and it can increase transparency and speed, giving decision makers crucial insights for determining when, where, and how to act. So what we would like to talk about today is how to unleash the power of advanced analytics. And for this panel discussion, I very welcome Johannes Giloth, COO and board member on GEA side, and my colleague from Orpheus and McKinsey company, Joerg Erlemeier. It is really great to have both of you here today, and I'm looking forward to have a very interesting discussion today. And now let's start with Johannes. Johannes, maybe can you give us a brief introduction into GEA and where you are currently standing with your analytics journey?
Yeah, thank you for introducing Katrin. And just to start with GEA, GEA is a German-based company listed in the MDAX, around 5 billion in turnover. Roughly 20,000 people working across the world for GEA. In the area of nutrition, food, and healthcare special machine building. So GEA is known for milk powder factories in Egypt, for milking robots in the farm technologies, for refrigeration technologies, for bakery solutions. So all over the place, a very diversified company with more than 200 legal entities. And we are providing the solutions and our machines to many niches in the nutrition and the food and healthcare business, from vaccination equipment to process equipment in the pharmaceutical industries and beyond. So that's a little bit to understand what GEA is. GEA has been historically grown, and with that historical growth, there comes a certain brownfield. And I think that's not new to many people in the business environment, having a brownfield environment. Just to give an understanding, we have 67 ERP systems which are not consolidated. And therefore, when it comes to data analytics, and you asked me about the journey of data analytics, I started my journey in the GEA company 18 months ago. And I was basically exposed to, I would say, not a high maturity of data analytics. Why? Because data analytics needs to start on data availability. So what we did as a journey, and especially in the procurement area, what we are now all focusing on, to start ask the question where to get the data from, what kind of data do we need, and to connect then the different data sources to a data pool. And we did that together with Orpheus. We basically put all data together on invoice basis in order to create a data lake, in order to create the visibility. But that is not still data analytics, because once you have the data, you need to start cleansing the data. You need to get an understanding what the data are about, and So the last 18 months, we really used to somehow make sense of the data, have our spend cube ready, starting to implement first analytics, which are out of the box. How many suppliers do we have? Do we have the same price for the same equipment elsewhere? What is our categories? Can we map our spend to the categories? Is there any kind of additional insight we can get? How many people are buying, and so on and so forth. So we are starting to do that, but it created already a huge transparency leap compared to before, and especially also when it comes to the accessibility of the data. So we have then also trained the people, which is another area of the data analytics, that you give access to the people to work with the data and to visualize the data and to set on that also a governance to have a look at it. Then the target setting comes into place and so on. So we are in the middle of a journey, and we are by far not there where I want us to be, but we have a clear vision, and I would say the foundation is now laid, and based on that, we will develop then also a cloud-based and a much more advanced analytics in the near coming future. So that is a little bit the journey in 5 minutes. Any other additional question to it?
Yes, and by the way, what I missed at the beginning of this breakout session, you all have the opportunity to submit your questions or hints or whatever you would like to discuss in this right area of this screen. You can only start typing, and if the time allows us, then at the end of the session, we will discuss your upcoming questions. Sorry for this. And now coming to your analytics journey, Johannes, very interesting. And I guess that this is really a huge and very interesting use case. And as you already mentioned, we as Orpheus are supporting you with this analytics journey in some areas. And I would love to discuss one more thing a little bit deeper. And it is about the integration of the solutions, not only our Orpheus solution, but also maybe other solutions into your operating model. How did or does this change your day-to-day life when it comes to not only reporting, but also performance measurement and impact identification?
Okay, as I just pointed out, the basics is the data availability, and the other basis is to get the data in time to many people, and then based on the possibilities the new tools are creating, it starts then also with pattern recognition. You see patterns you wouldn't see if you don't have either the data or the data are not basically in time available. So and that pattern recognition is driving questions. If you have the right mindset of the people, people need to actively seek for those patterns, need to be trained into that, also looking at those patterns, then also asking the right questions, because then you will detect issues you wouldn't have expected, and areas of improvement you wouldn't have seen without the analytics. There is a lot of wrongdoing in the company, and you will see that by applying the right methodologies. It's all about managing the complexity at the end of the day, because as I stated, 67 ERP systems, and it's not easy to get the data in the right format, but once you have it, you create a tremendous speed. I give you one example. Before I joined the company did do a spend cube once a year with a huge project, and once the spend cube was established, it was already outdated. Yeah. Now we have the possibility to actually have to run our spend cube on a daily basis, more or less. We are not yet there. Now we are doing it every second week, but that's okay. We are getting there, but it's at least 25 times faster than in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then that is the speed is of the essence, because then you can also react quickly, and also the effort to get the data together has gone down tremendously. But that requires also shifting the organization and shifting basically resources into analytics and establish people which are dedicated only to not only provide the data, but also ask the first questions on the one side. On the other side, the category managers, the strategic buyers, the guy who works on a day-to-day basis, they need to own their own data. It cannot be, and it must not be that this analytics is being pushed out to a small team. It is in the interest of everybody to know their own data. What is my spend? What is my long tail? Do I see any kind of patterns? Are we following our preferred suppliers? Yes or no? And who does not follow it? And so on and so forth. That is possible with having that what we have established so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to this, Johannes, because the importance, of course, of the transparency is absolutely key, like you said in the beginning, right? So creating actually the extraction from all of this multiple ERP systems, making sense of the data, which is really, of course, cleaning the data. So it's pre-processing the data and making sure actually that the technology stacks hang together and so forth, and creating this data lake. And I think this is also, because that's one of the topics, of course, we wanted to discuss. It's, of course, possible in the area of cloud, right? So we can really actually, seamlessly connect data points in the data lake and start actually, running, the advanced analytics techniques, like, for example, bots, machine learning, and AI algorithms actually, over this to really make sure that we are, creating also sensible outcomes and impacts and recognitions actually of where we should act as a company, right? And I think the importance is actually also to understand that the complexity these days of those data points is beyond actually human capability, right? It starts to become actually, much more powerful to utilize analytics and use the manpower actually to do much more creative and strategic, buying decisions and sourcing decisions.
Mm.
And the other point which I would like to maybe also mention is that it becomes eventually, of course, not only the procurement aspect, it becomes actually an aspect of supply chain, manufacturing, in time or real time, actually, decision making for those, areas. And maybe that's an interesting point actually to highlight to the audience as well.
Yeah.
There is one question, I think, from the audience on data cleansing.
Yeah.
Potentially we can cover that. That's a very interesting point, because 67 ERP systems with different structures, once you put everything into one data lake, it's a kind of a polluted lake to a certain extent. It's kind of a dirty lake with a lot of kind of stuff which shouldn't be in there. And to be frank, it's a hell of also a manual work to get it cleansed. There are artificial intelligences which can help you. There are self-learning recognitions patterns to some of be applied, but the legwork in many areas needs to be done by the guy who know what they talk about. It's about the category managers, and we have a clear process established that the category managers need to own their data and need to understand if the data makes sense. They need to also give mapping tables. They need to, is that supplier equivalent to that supplier? When it comes to categorization of a spend, you cannot sometimes there is wrong bookings in our invoices. There is, and that needs to be corrected. The good news is you only need to correct it once. Next time, once you have corrected it, the system will automatically detect that and map it then right. But and therefore, it's a combination of both. A lot of manual work with clear accountabilities, that the people are owning their data and accountable for the quality of their data, plus a support from AI and databases in the background.
And maybe I can add to this that it is really important to have an internal team, we call it very often center of excellence, that takes the responsibility for all this work. So you should also always think about how can we organize this, especially data cleansing process. This is really the key to come to the actionable insights later on. Thank you very much. I see no more questions here in the audience, and we also already stated the topic of data lakes. So I hope that you are we are all of the same opinion that it is really incredible important that we have one single source of truth, which we also can call this cloud-based data lake, instead of taking and collecting all the data on a manual or even automated way, day by day or month by month from single systems. So it can be that you have single system sources, and yet it can be a lot, but it's so important to have one single source of truth at the end. Now I would like to talk about the impact generation through advanced analytics. So usually I understand that most of our clients or most of the organizations are looking into historical data and compare it with actual data. That's really a very good step into the future, but it's not advanced. So what I would like to understand and discuss now is the goal beyond the simple savings generation and comparing actuals and historical data. So where do you see the biggest potential impact beyond this? Johannes and Jörg, please feel free.
Well, I think it's anyway clear that the classical way to look to procurement, just to focus on savings, is kind of an old-fashioned way of looking at it. Why? Because it is normally not, it's kind of difficult to see that in the EBITDA bridges at the end of the day, and it is also leading to a certain misallocation of some resources. So the question is more, how can we elevate that kind of information to more a total cost of ownership discussion? And so it's more than just savings tracking. It's about long tail management. It's about, are we applying the right preferred suppliers? Do we have possibilities to exchange specs? Can we find possibilities to exchange a supplier from one side to the other, because actually that's the same stuff what we are buying, which we don't know in many cases. You know, with 200 legal entities, with thousands of products, it's very difficult. And here we can do much more in having a contribution to total cost of ownership in terms of modularization, in terms of shrinking the supplier portfolio, and so on. Even more, it is the basis to have a strategic supplier management, because you need to have that data in order to interact with your suppliers. Normally, the suppliers does much more than we do with our own business. So it's much more. It's a possibility to elevate the procurement function away from a classical, you need to just cut the costs in a PPV understanding, towards something which is more contributing. And last but not least, in many areas we can't even look into a PPV contribution when it comes to, for example, a project management, when it comes to areas where we do not have a reference price for. And here we need to establish a spend control. And spend control is equally, or is actually more important, especially in the indirect area. And here also the analytics can give us a lot of benefits into that, because a lot of those costs are pretty much hidden, wrongly booked. Potentially last point, when we talk about special categories, they are not visible in the P&L of a company, because people are booking them left and right. But if I have my spend cube based on an invoice base, I can really see how much money we are spending for temp workers, for example, or for logistics, which is potentially hidden in the margin. So it is helping us really to sit at the table of the business rather than being a support function.
I think that's super important. So let me just add, I think there is this kind of elements, but there is also the elements actually of looking into the future. And I think advanced, analytics will help us with that, right? So ultimately we will be able to do much, better predictions. We can tie that actually into our financial forecasting models. we do know then actually, what is the trend, right? In which direction are we going? We see actually we can combine that, of course, with the strategic view and the commercial outlook, for example, of the company, or we can also mitigate risk, right? Because if you look at supply shortages, which we currently see again, in the chipset market, for example, or opportunity-based, decision making based on raw material prices, for example, or components which you might have a long-lasting effect actually on your supply and manufacturing processes. All of these components actually become viable, and they are not spot decisions anymore, because you combine multiple insights and multiple sources of information to really actually make sense out of it and drive the right decision making, or support at least the right decision making at any point in time in the journey.
Yeah. Anything to add from your side, Johannes?
Well, I think that was a very important topic, the prediction models and the forecasting, because that is very much important, that we are going away from just historical ex post data and what went wrong in the past into something, okay, how can we then model the future towards the suppliers in terms of forecasting, but also into the business inside, what is our contribution to it? So it's that is something which historically that was very difficult, and now with a fact base, with a database you can really create those models, and that can be nicely, for example, or correlated with the S&OP program, the Sales and Operations Planning program, because that has been historically a kind of a difficulty to have much more historical data, not necessarily in the machine building in single project, but when I look into consumer products, I would guess and bet that this gives you a very good insights for certain behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. So with a view to the time, we have 3 minutes left. Are there any more questions from the audience? If not, then I would have another question. It's not this technical thing, but Johannes, maybe you can give an advice to the audience about how can you drive user adoption. I guess without the users, it will not work. And so the users, how do you bring the users to the solution, to use the solution, and to get the insights out of it, and to use it for their day-to-day life? That would be of interest,
Well,
I guess, for everybody.
That's a very good question, because at the end of the day, we just said that if only 3-4 people are using it, it's not working. So you need to have a broad usage throughout the different hierarchies, also through the different questions and use cases. The first thing is you need to, that thing needs to be creating a value add for the people. And the people they will see the value add once they start working with the data, but that requires also that the data are, that the user interface and everything, the availability, then needs to be, the barriers to enter needs to be very low. So people need to say, wow, that's cool, that's much better than I ever had. So the ease of use kind of a thing is one topic. The second topic is that top-down, you're asking the right questions. Basically, if you ask the category managers, hey, how many of your long-tail suppliers have not been used in the last 15 months, whatever, then you trigger a question and somebody needs to get the answer. If the tool can create the answer, all of a sudden the people understand, wow, that's a helpful thing. So the demand from top-down needs to be driven. But that's not everything, because then you would like to create a kind of I would say, a self-learning thing that the people are triggering their questions on their own. And that is only possible once you have the right people. So basically, you need to also have the right people in there. And sometimes you figure out that the people are eager to learn and step up. And in some other cases, people are not getting there, and you need to support them. So a centralized team can help and do the trainings, but you also need to educate the people over time through this, and potentially also exchange the one on the other person.
Thank you so much. And Sorry, but now we have 1 minute left, and I just saw that we have this
There's
separate
some questions there. Exactly. Yeah. So I will take one quickly, because I got a question actually on the key benefits of Orpheus. This is
Yeah.
not a sales session. So the only thing I want to say is actually that the key importance is actually to implement a solution from extraction. So multiple actually, data sources, creating actually this, call it data warehouse, data lake, or whatever you want to, term it, which is, as already elaborated by Johannes, only useful if you actually have clean data in there. So that means actually you need to spend effort on building actually the right amount of data sets and taxonomy, which really actually makes sense for you to work with. The next step is, of course, then building these spend insights, building the categorization actually of that data. But then the next real important step is actually to have the advanced analytics to help you actually with, for example, bots, etc., to standardize the ways of how you're looking actually at certain data points and how you connect that. And you can make this, as also Johanna said before, actually refreshable. So that means you are not anymore at the mercy of, waiting actually, for a long time to get actually to actual data, because the future, I believe, very much actually lies in real, or at least near real-time impact, and therefore actually, analytics on a very fast-paced basis, and almost actually giving you a trigger point and alerts on a daily basis to the right, strategic or category buyers, which are then making decisions which can be executed on. So I think that's for me, in a nutshell, actually the key importance actually of the solution.
Okay, thank you so much. Sonja, I know that I see that you have a lot of questions. We are already in contact. I would say that let's take that offline maybe. We are anyhow in contact. I thank you all for joining this breakout session. I hope you learned something or you could reproduce something, and very happy to answer questions furthermore after the event maybe. And otherwise, I wish you a very nice rest of the event, very nice networking, interesting sessions. And yeah, take care and goodbye from my side. And thank you very much, Johannes and Jörg, for sure.
Thank you
from my side.
Thank you.
Goodbye,
Bye.
everybody.